Alright guys, Monday the 8th of August, and we've got a new visitor to the garage. The TR6 is back home. Dropped off the TR3 yesterday after we went for a bit of a drive in the morning. It's been extremely hot here and humid, so hoping that heat and humidity breaks tomorrow. Been tinkering around a little bit on the car, specifically the 250, and as you can see I've got the Surrey section fitted on the Surrey top. This is a nice canvas top, needs a little bit of cleaning. But we've got it fitted and we're getting it sort of stretched out a little bit. It's a little bit tight here in the back here to get this one fastener buttoned up. This does have a conversion done to it. It's actually utilizing the header rail from a TR6. So it's got a header rail conversion. We'll show you that maybe some other time. This is a John Skinner canvas section that we're using. So it fits quite nicely actually. Done a little test with the windows rolled up. So that seems to be fitting pretty well. There is a little bit of work to be done, but all in all, not too bad. We've got to do a little something up here for this little catch here to catch onto something. I'm not quite sure what the original owner was doing with the snaps up here, but maybe I'll give him a shout and figure out exactly what his intention were with these snaps up here. Anyway, this fastener we were able to get fastened back here. It's just really that one fastener on the passenger side rear here that we're having an issue with as far as stretching is concerned. I got it stretched once enough to get it snapped, and then it just unsnapped itself, and I've kind of worn my fingers a little bit raw trying to get it snapped up. So we'll just leave it for a little bit. Hopefully it'll stretch now that it's outside here in the garage. It's been inside the house in the storage room for the past little while. So anyway, I think it looks good. I think it's going to be quite a functional piece when we don't want to have the actual hard top section. So looks good from the rear. I think the bow's looking pretty good as far as the height is concerned. So yeah, I think the car actually looks pretty good even with that canvas section on. I'll give you a little bit better shot of it from over here. So yeah, I think that's looking good. Alright, let's move on to the next little project. And you might be able to see here we've got some moisture behind the front passenger side tire. And that is telling me that our olive on that water pipe has failed. And I expected that I might have some issues. We're utilizing the olive from the old pipe, and it is actually weeping out of there. So that means we've got to take that pipe back off. And I'm hoping that we can do that without removing the carburetors, because they were a bit of a pain to get on. I'm pretty sure I can do it without removing the carbs, but I haven't actually done that yet. So just about to do that now. We're going to detach the hose here from the rear and work on this big nut up the front here and see if we can pull that pipe out successfully. And I am waiting on parts. Unfortunately, they have not arrived from the US yet. I ordered them last week. They are on their way, but I expect it'll be a few more days until they get to me. Included in that parts order are new olives. I ordered I think 3 just to have a couple spares, and of course all of my plumbing for the carburetors is coming. My fuel lines, my emission lines are coming as well. So hopefully those will be here in the near future, and we can get this car back up and running hopefully by the weekend. Alright, the good news is we managed to get that water pipe without too much issue, and there is the reason why it's leaking. Do you see the split in the olive there? I think you can probably see that. So thank goodness we got new olives coming. We saw that as being a potential problem. So we'll fit the new olive when it comes, and hopefully that will take care of our leaks and we won't have to exchange this pipe again. Anyway, that is done for now. I'm probably going to go in and cool off and get back out here later on. Actually, one other thing I wanted to show you before I went in is I did order a vacuum cap kit or assortment from Amazon, and I'll tell you the reason why. On this car, it originally would never have had a carbon canister. Now these carbs are from a later car. I think they're about 73-ish, somewhere around there, and they have provisions to run emissions up to a carbon canister, which normally would be at the front right-hand side of the car here. Now I'm not going to be running a carbon canister, so I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to be doing with these ports. So this is a vent that would actually vent from the float bowl, I guess, or from this chamber here. Normally would go over to the carbon canister. I didn't want that, so all I've done is I've just capped this 2 nipples off. I also only need 1 vacuum source for the distributor. So we've got 2 sources here, one on the bottom of this carb and one on the top of this carb. So we're going to run vacuum off of this carb for the distributor, and we've just capped the nipple on the bottom of the front carb. Alright, Tuesday night was about 8 o'clock?
No idea. Yeah.
Somewhere around 8. Nice night actually, a lot cooler than the last couple of days. So there's a bunch of rust in my driveway I'm kind of disappointed about. So Lynn's come by to help me pick up a new engine and more importantly overdrive transmission. I think this might be a TR4 block, but the guy was advertising as a TR3, but these look like TR4 carbs for sure, but I'm not sure about the rest of it. I'll have to check the engine number out tomorrow and we'll play around. We'll just, I don't even know if it's seized or not. That's not really that important because this would go for a full rebuild anyway if I was to use it for anything. But like I said, more importantly, I need the A-type overdrive eventually for my 62 TR4 project. So that's why we picked this up. We got a good deal on it. It was local as well, and that's kind of unusual. Plus I got all the ancillary bits, starter, generator, carbs, coil, distributor, fuel pump, everything is there except for the fan basically, water pump's there. I haven't actually taken the valve cover off again. That'll be tomorrow. We'll play around and just have a quick look at it. We'll probably end up separating the overdrive or the transmission from the block. It's just a little bit easier to store that way. Of course, storage is at a premium. We did notice this funny little doohickey down here that I've actually seen before on my TR250 block. It looks a little bit different, but I believe that's a block heater for a Canadian car. You don't see those very often, all you southern US guys. So I'll pull that out eventually and we'll have a look at it in a bit more of a discussion. But yeah, so that was a good buy, or at least we think it was a good buy. I haven't had the cover off the transmission yet. Like I said, it could be full of water, but we're going to take a better inspection at it at some other date. Oh, it's got the early dipstick for the TR. I didn't even notice actually. So that's an early A-type with the dipstick actually, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
The other thing, look at this rusty beauty. So this is my old TR250 frame that's seen much better days, and Lynn's got a project for it. Do you want me to share what the project is?
Sure.
So I believe what he's going to do, he'd mentioned some time ago that he was thinking of actually making an engine run stand out of this. So I think that's what his plan is. He's got an engine that he's just finishing up a rebuild on now. So I think he's going to actually go ahead and make this into a stand and be able to use it not for just this engine rebuild, but for all his future engine rebuilds. So yeah, I'm glad to get this out of my backyard. So you can see, I mean, he likes rusty beauties.
There's rust for me, yeah.
Breakfast. Breakfast there, some breakfast. Look at all the breakfast here. I mean, wow, that's like a smorgasbord. So yeah, so it's a little rusty, but the front's pretty solid. I think it's been patched a couple places here already. There's a big patch right there. So yeah, it's definitely seen better days. Anyway, off to a better home. It was serving me no purpose in the backyard. So anyway, thanks for cleaning up my backyard for me.
Thank you. Thank you for the frame.
All right, we'll come back at some later time. We are still working on the 250 as well. Playing around with the exhaust today, and I've got it better, but it's still not perfect. And you know me, it's got to be perfect. The right-hand side's got a bit of a tilt to it, to the down on to the left side. So, but I think the height is much better. I got the height where I want it to be. I just got to get the tilt out of that right-hand pipe. So we're working on that. Still waiting on parts from Moss for the rest of the carbs. So hopefully that will be here in the next day or two. And I was saying to Lynn that while I was under the car playing with the exhaust, I noticed that I've got a pretty good oil leak coming from the transmission. Who knows what that is? It might just be the big plug on the transmission is leaking through the gasket. So we'll have to have a look at that. Of course, that's going to mean that I'm going to have to drain the oil out of the transmission if that's the case, to replace the gasket. But better that than have it leaking all over the floor. All right, that's it for tonight. We'll get back out here tomorrow, and we'll grab an engine number. All right, Wednesday night out in the garage, and we thought we would come out and just play around with this engine block and transmission that we received yesterday. What I think I'm going to do is, I had the urge to do a will it start video, but I don't think we're going to do that, and we're just going to leave it be for now. I think what I want to do is I want to take the transmission off of it. I also want to take off all the ancillaries off the engine to make it a little bit easier from a storage perspective. So we'll take the carburetors off, the coil, the distributor, the fuel pump. We'll probably leave the oil filter on because it still has oil in the engine. Actually, the oil looks pretty good, to be honest with you. Probably take the starter off as well, just to get that all of the way, and we'll box that up, and we'll put that into use on a future project. But main goal for tonight is to actually check the engine number. So I can see the trans number over here. So there's the stamping on the trans. I'm not sure you can read that or not. TS79762. And we're trying to get to this number here. I've cleaned it off with a little bit of a wire brush, but we've got some stuff in the way here, so we want to get busy and start cleaning up some of the ancillaries as mentioned to be able to get that cleaned up and have a better look at that. So that's what we're up to tonight in the garage. Just a little fun breaking things down, and we'll come back with an update in a little while. Alright, we got some of the bits out of the way, so we're able to clean up that number a little bit better. And it looks like we've got TS79744E as the number. I'm not sure if you can see that or not. So I'm going to give you a little bit better light on the subject. I would say that this is actually the transmission that's supposed to be with this engine block. That's TS79762. Numbers are not going to be exact, but they're going to be close, which that is. So I would say we've got, well, I don't know where the engine is from. I'm thinking this is a late TR3A. So we're going to do a quick lookup on this and figure out where it's from, and we'll report back. Alright, we've slimmed the engine down significantly, so that's going to be a little bit easier to store with all those ancillary bits off. We've got them just sitting out here on the driveway. So I will mention to you, I did a little bit of research, just took a little bit of a break, and was checking on this manifold. So my understanding is that since this is a dual pipe manifold, this is off a TR4A, which would mean the intake manifold is also off a TR4A, because this manifold actually has a provision. I don't know if I can show it here, but you see here these little studs here on the bottom of the intake manifold. They actually line up here and bolt in to the exhaust manifold here. So it would make sense if that's a TR4A manifold that is a, or exhaust manifold, that's a TR4A intake manifold. So I know TR4s switched carburetors, I think through the years, I think from SUs to Zenith Stromberg, so I'm not sure whether these carbs would be from a TR3 or TR4. Regardless, they would work on a TR3 or TR4 for that matter, so don't care. I have SUs on both of my current TR3s, the 59 and the 60 have SUs, so I'm pretty familiar with those. Other bits, obviously the remnants of the air filters are gone, plus the fuel line. We've got the starter out. Here is that block heater. And interestingly enough, I believe the one on the TR250 actually went through the block into a core plug, so it actually heated the water internally. This was strictly an external block heater, so it actually just sit flat against the block and would apply heat. You just actually, there's the plug-in for it there. So that actually came off pretty easily. I kind of like that type better than the actual core plug version. This seems a little safer actually in my mind. Anyway, so that's kind of interesting for anybody who's not seen an aftermarket block heater on one of these engines. Generator's off. We probably won't go back with a generator. We'll probably do an alternator conversion. I like to run a few other components like electric fan, driving lights, that kind of thing, and the generator has a hard time keeping up. What else do we take off? Obviously the distributor and the pedestal. For that, there's the oil feed line that goes from the oil housing to the gauge. Distributor cap, oil dipstick. This is the tack cable. There's the old fuel pump. Quite like the old fuel pumps. They clean up nicely with the glass bowl. The coil, this is called a road draft tube for anybody who's not seen these. So that vents directly from the bottom of the engine block. So this fits into the side of the block, and this actually drains right out in the street. So it's a vent for the block, and like I said, it's called a road draft tube. So clutch, slave cylinder and bracket, and again the carbs we already have seen, and the old belt. So we'll box these components up, we'll put them in a bin, and bring them out when we're ready to work on rebuilding this engine. I think what we might do, we might rebuild this just for fun and have a spare for the 59 TR3. I'm quite happy with the 60 TR3 and how that's running. I did not rebuild the engine in the 59. We were just going to go with the engine that was in it. So we may have an opportunity to rebuild this engine and then stick it in the 59 in the 59's place. We'd obviously keep the 59 block, and if we were to ever sell the 59, we'd want to make sure that the original block for that car that's in it now would actually go along with the sale. So we could possibly do that. Again, the overdrive, I'm not going to use it for the 59 TR3. This is actually going to go into my 62 TR4, which was an original overdrive car, but the overdrive I think was used for another project from the previous owner, so it's only got a 4-speed in there now. So that's really why I bought this, was for the overdrive. We're going to obviously, this would be, since this is a TR3A engine, this would be a non-synchro box. Non-synchro I'm not going to run with, so would actually want to run it into a full synchro box, so we'll have to update that. But anyway, I did a little bit more research on the commission numbers and the block number that we talked about. So I can't remember exactly what the block number was, but I remember it started with a 79. And according to the commission numbers, which will be fairly close, again, not exact, but fairly close to what the engine number would be, this would have come out originally out of a 1960 Triumph TR3A. I believe if the production numbers or the commission numbers started with 65 in 1960 and went all the way up to 82, so this falls within that group. Again, the transmission would have been attached to this engine, and it's very, very close, within a couple hundred of the actual commission number. So this would have been the original setup from a 1960 Triumph TR3A. Again, with some additions or some changes to the later exhaust manifold and later carb intake manifold, but people did that back in the day. So, all right, I think we'll wrap this project up. The only thing I want to do tomorrow is we want to support the bottom of the engine, the oil pan, and we're going to try to take off the transmission to make this store a little bit easier. So we'll see if we can do that without having to dig out the engine hoist to be able to do that. I borrowed a Lynn's hoist to be able to go pick this up because my hoist is tucked away in storage. So if we can actually do this without getting the hoist, I'm going to do it. If not, the transmission might stay attached to the block. However, my choice is to try to remove it and make it a little bit more compact for storage. All right, that's it for now on this little minor project, and we'll get back to the 250. All right, early morning Thursday, and thought we'd do a little bit of work before work and try to get this transmission off the rear of the engine. I've got the rear engine blocked up just on the engine flange. I think the transmission will clear it, so we're going to give that a shot. So we'll get the gun out and we'll remove all the fasteners, except for the top center one. We'll do that one very last, so it holds some of the weight of the trans. We don't want it to fall off before I'm ready. So we'll go ahead and we'll undo all that hardware and get ready to remove the transmission. Alright, the transmission has been successfully detached from the engine block. So we'll just put this here temporarily. And I have to remember that when we go to move the TR6, that we have an engine block and a transmission over on the side of the garage. This is just going to be a temporary place for this until we can get some space cleared out underneath the mezzanine. Maybe behind the sandblaster would be a good spot for this. Probably I did a little tape job on it. We'll probably wrap it up in a bag as well, temporarily, just to keep anything out of it that shouldn't be in it. So that's it for now. I guess got to clean up a little bit, and then we'll move on back to the 250. Alright, we got the 250 back up on jack stands, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to investigate this oil leak underneath my transmission. You can see it there. I think that's an oil leak anyway. I don't believe it's water, unless it dripped along the frame rail from the engine bay where I've had these pipes disconnected. I suppose that's possible, but not probable. Anyway, we'll get under there and see if I can determine where that's coming from. It's not good, obviously. That's quite a significant amount of oil, if that's what it is, from the car just sitting there. And it's odd because that's just sort of cropped up. Anyway, let me see what I make of that once I get under the car, and I'll report back. Alright, just coming up to 8 p.m. and I thought I'd give you a quick update. So I've been out in the garage for a couple of hours, and the first thing I did was I took a look at that oil spot on the garage floor, and I cleaned it up best I could, and I've sort of been monitoring to see if it's actually still dripping there, and I don't really see anything. I do see a little bit of weepage from the big brass nut on the bottom of the A-type transmission, but other than that, the area where it was showing oil dripping, there was really nothing above it that would indicate where it was dripping from. So it's a bit of a mystery, so we're going to keep an eye on that. I'll probably put a piece of cardboard under there tonight and take a look at it tomorrow and see if we have any more issues there. So no idea where it came from, but it's still concerning, but it doesn't look like it's coming from this car. Maybe it was coming from the TR3, I don't know. The other thing I've been doing is working on the exhaust, and I think we've got it better. My OCD is sort of kicking in a little bit. It's definitely higher up towards the bottom of the rear valence. I am going to work on hammering out the dent in this tip over here. We've got a tailpipe expander that we're going to use as kind of a buck, and we're going to get our rubber mallet out and see if we can fix that little dent. But I think that's looking pretty good. It's probably pretty hard to tell with the car up in the air, but I think when it's down on the ground it should probably look okay. So again, they're not perfect. They are canted out a little bit on each side. They're kind of following the run of the bumper, let's say, so they're not exactly flat, but the best I can get them based on the mounting locations that I've got set up. So I spent more than a couple hours on that, so I'm pretty much ready to give up and say good enough. Anyway, we are going to attempt to get the dent out of this, so that's the thing we're going to do tonight. And we'll just crank the tunes out here, get a little stool, a little hammer and dolly work, and see if we can get that tip to look a little bit better. There's the before. Hopefully we'll be able to get it to look better than that without cracking the chrome on the top of this. So there it is before, and we'll come back and look at the after. Alright, I'll show you what we're doing here to fix this tailpipe. So I've got a tailpipe expander, and if you've never seen these, you crank them, and they're adjustable. This one I believe goes up to, let's see on the package here, this one is from 1.5 inches to 2.5 inches. So you basically just crank it and it expands out. There's a couple of rubber bands here that keep these little fingers together, but as you wind it, it expands. So we've got it expanded out inside the tailpipe here, and then we're using our little custom hammer, and this is from a buddy of mine named Cutworm. Cutworm sent me this a while ago, and it's just perfect for this little job. So it's even got a little customized handle on it, TR250 handle. So it's just a little brass and rubber headed hammer, tiny one, and it's working well just to planish out some of the dents here on the lip of this the tailpipe. So, and we're just going to use this expander as a bit of a buck while we're doing a little tapping around this outside edge. I'm going to try to tap this area here, for example, see if we can get this tiny little bit of a flare out here, but other than that, it's looking pretty good. It doesn't have to be perfect, just better than it was. Alright, getting a little darker out, so hopefully you can see this. So there's the end result of that little bit of hammer and dolly work. It's definitely better than it was. It's not perfect, but I think it's good enough. So I think we're going to stop playing around with the exhaust now and just be happy with it, at least for a little while. We can play around with it somewhere in the future if need be, but I think we're going to leave it for now and concentrate on other things. Still waiting for my parts package. Apparently it's stuck in customs in Canada, so it wasn't released today, it doesn't look like, so I'm not sure if it's going to make it out for delivery tomorrow. It would be nice if I could have those parts for the weekend, but it's not looking good. Anyway, that's it for tonight. We'll get back out here tomorrow.